All set?
And then.
Right, I guess we'll call the meeting to order. First on the agenda is the pledge of allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Bob's gonna swear tonight.
Yep.
He usually does.
Just first thing on the agenda is the swearing in of our re-elected select board member.
I'm glad you didn't say old select board.
Would I
I'll
do?
come to you, Bob.
I'll come to you.
It's fine.
Meet you halfway.
Here, I'll let you raise your right hand.
I, Robert Butler, solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States so long as I shall continue a citizen thereof, and the Constitution of Maine. And I will in all respects observe the ordinances of the town of Waldeboro and the Constitution and laws of the state of Maine, and will faithfully discharge the duties of select board for the ensuing municipal years of 2022 to 2025.
And you've signed,
I have.
Pam will sign.
Thank you.
There you go. You're all official.
Congratulations.
Next on the agenda, election of officers.
Oh,
Somebody like to make a motion for the select board chair.
I would like to nominate Jan Griesenbrock as chair of the select board this coming year.
See a second. I'll second. Any other nominations? Seeing none. All those in favor? How about vice chair?
I'll nominate Jan Minzy.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any other nominations? Seeing none. All those in favor? Colonel, your seat.
Boy.
It's the Jans of plural.
Yeah.
Take your glasses.
Thank you. I'll need them.
You take your name.
Sit in the hot seat. First, I just wanted to recognize Abden for the fine job he did as chairman for this past year. It hasn't been an easy one. And before him, I've been on for 2 years, Bob Butler, and the job that he had done in supporting the select board and the town of Waldeboro. Both of those gentlemen are, first rate, nice people. So if you'd join me and give them a hand.
I'm sure
Okay,
you'll
let's
do
get down
just
to
as good.
business.
There you go.
All right. Presentations. All right. What presentations do we have?
None.
None? There's none listed, so, all right. All right, that's easy. Okay, public hearings.
We have none of those either.
I'm getting to like this.
I know.
Okay. Adjustments to the agenda. Is there anything that
Yes.
anybody would like to mention for an adjustment to the agenda?
We have one adjustment. EMS Chief Booker will be in around 6:15. He needs to speak with you about the cost of diesel and the need to raise the transport rate for patients. So he will be here at
Okay.
6:15.
All right. Depending on where we are with that, as long as it's okay with everybody, that we'll go into Chief Booker's at 6:15. All right, that takes us to citizen
Sorry, Colonel,
comments.
can I also add something to the agenda? If I
Please.
may. The 250th Anniversary Committee is looking for authorization from the Select Board to spend the Waldeboro Day monies on our anniversary next year.
That is
So-
the update to would that fall under the last one?
I guess it could. Yeah, that's fine.
So then we'll go with
And the
12.2.
authorization would go with that agenda item. Yeah.
12 points. Okay. Okay, citizen comments. We have, quite a few people here tonight. Is there anybody that has anything they'd like to bring up to the board? Sir? Yeah, use the podium, and there's a microphone to your right and top. And introduce
It
yourself.
picks right up from Bob. Bob, it picks right up from the top now.
There you are.
Yeah, please introduce yourself.
Sure. Mr. Chair, my name is Brendan McGurl. I'm a resident of Waldeboro. I'm here tonight to discuss the disorderly property ordinance that just got passed. This ordinance could have been far more just and fair. When I first read it, I was outraged. I'm not a lawyer, but my sister is, and she suggested I compare Waldeboro's ordinance to that of other towns to see if it was as draconian as I thought it was. So I read the disorderly property ordinances of Portland, South Portland, Bar Harbor, Rockland, and Biddeford. There's some dramatic differences, and yes, this is as terrible as ordinance as I thought it was. Let's talk about where this ordinance came from first. What I know about the ordinance from the select board meeting notes is that on 11/29/21, the development of the ordinance was discussed, and the board agreed to build from Rockland's ordinance and to send the draft to the chief of police and to the community navigator for markup. Presumably, this happened. Final text of the ordinance was settled, and on February 22nd, 22, a public comment period was held during the select board meeting. There were no public comments. Comment period was closed, and the board unanimously recommended that the public approve the measure and tasked the town manager to get the information out to the public. I'm curious to know why the information was not given to the public in advance of the public hearing. But let's move on. The town website described this ordinance as addressing properties in town that have repeated complaints from neighbors and are having a negative impact on the neighborhood. And it will, quote, reduce excessive use of emergency services responding to these recurring events. I don't agree that this is an accurate description of this ordinance. The statement never describes any of the new powers being conferred to the police chief through this ordinance. It seems to me that after this was handed to the police chief, he wrote an ordinance that grants to himself the power to force property owners to evict tenants that he deems unworthy to live in Waldeboro. The description of the ordinance in the town's website is intentionally misleading in order to gain public support. Now, let's discuss the differences between your ordinances and some others from around the state. The first big difference is a threshold required for the number of police visits to an address before the police can exercise their power under this ordinance. Rockland's threshold is 5 visits to an address in 2 months. Waldeboro's threshold is 2 visits in 6 months. So Rockland's police have to visit an address 7.5 times more often in order to trigger the use of this ordinance. Compared to the other towns in my survey, the average was roughly 3 times more contact with the police before the powers under the disorderly property ordinance can be used. This difference tells me that the Waldeboro police chief intends to use his power frequently. Second, the severity of the punitive fines in your ordinance is disproportionately high compared to other towns. Waldeboro is not a wealthy town, yet the punitive penalties are on par with a wealthy town like Bar Harbor. The punitive fines are $1,000 per day per violation. So, for example, if a property owner refuses to consent to the remediation order from the police chief, the penalty of $1,000 per day per violation starts ticking. The police get called to an address after a remediation agreement is in place. The property owner is faced with another $1,000 per day per violation fine, plus the cost of the police response. Every ordinance that I looked at is consistent in seeking to recoup the cost of the police response in a situation like this. But there's a lot of difference in the punitive part of the fines related to this. So Portland, for example, has no punitive fine guidelines. They send the entire issue to the courts and let a judge determine what the penalties are going to be. The punitive penalty for this same violation in Rockland is $75. It's not $75 per day per violation, it's just $75 plus the cost of the police showing up. Waldeboro's ordinance is $1,000 per day per violation. Third, the system that you've created with this ordinance presents obvious constitutional law issues. The ordinance, which was presented for consideration by the voters with the unanimous support of the board, strips residents of Waldeboro of their 5th and 14th Amendment rights. The ordinance abridges our 5th Amendment rights to avoid self-incrimination because property owners are now required by the ordinance to agree to the orders of the police chief or face $1,000 per day per violation fine. We have a right under the Fifth Amendment to avoid self-incrimination, which is being abridged by this. The punitive fine was created to coerce the property owner into confessing to the wrongdoing and to agreeing to the chief's remedial orders, which is illegal. The ordinance also chose to do away with our 14th Amendment rights to due process under the law, because in the system you've designed, the police chief is the final arbiter of justice. Your ordinance has no public hearing process or an appeal process. The only recourse that a property owner has after the police chief uses this power against them is to sue the town. There are ways to create a transparent system that people can be confident in while preserving our rights to due process. The other ordinances that I reviewed had an external appeal process, either by referring the entire issue to the courts or by holding a public hearing within the municipal government, either with the select board or another entity, or hearing the issue with non-police witnesses present to make sure that the police cannot unilaterally exert that power. Your ordinance has no such system of accountability. Does that sound like justice? Without public trust, this government can't work. Every time the people of this town elect one of you, they are trusting you to do the right thing. And after being handed this trust, you handed away their constitutional rights to give the police chief the power to run poor people out of town. Your ordinance empowers the police to create homelessness from thin air. The police could use this ordinance to create a sundown town by forcing property owners to evict all their non-white tenants. Sounds unlikely, but you just gave them that power and demanded no oversight, no system of accountability to be present for that in exchange for that power. This does not sound like a system of justice to me. It sounds like an abdication of your responsibilities. We deserve better. We deserve an ordinance that reflects our values. Thank you.
I see that Chief is here. Chief Booker. You're next, sir.
Thanks for squeezing me in last minute. So I talked to Julie earlier today. We've recently had a few discussions about increasing our fees for service rates. It's pretty straightforward why we would do it. Obviously, the increase in diesel, we don't even know how much that's going to affect us the next fiscal year just yet. Maintenance costs are going up. Cost of medical supplies are going up, that sort of thing. We typically review this every so often. I think probably now heading into fiscal year 23, it being the 28th of June, July 1 coming right up would be a good time to talk to you guys about my proposal and see what you think. So it's all kind of typed up in front of me here. So I'll take questions as we go, but I will just start by explaining to you basically how we bill, what we bill for, and that sort of thing. So basically we bill in accordance with the operational policy 4-1000, so adopted by the town way back when, October 2022, or excuse me, 2002. Basically says that we charge a fee for service. We bill for all of these things in this policy. Basically, long and short of it is we bill for emergency runs and transfers. We do not bill currently for patient refusals or no patient contact type calls, meaning if we go to a car accident, we evaluate somebody, they refuse transport because they're uninjured or don't wish to be transported by EMS. We don't charge a bill for that. We don't charge a fee for that. So unfortunately, we work within the realms of what we call Medicare allowable rate. So what that essentially means is patients that use Medicare as their primary billing or their primary insurance coverage, they will pay, or Medicare will pay X number of dollars for the service that we're providing. So basically, there's several different levels. BLS emergency base rate. So for instance, if we respond to a residence here in Waldeboro and we do not use any sort of ALS intervention, supplies, medications, that sort of thing, and we just transport them to the hospital, giving evaluation, that sort of thing, we currently charge $500 for that. My proposal would be that we would bump that $100 even to $600 per BLS emergency call. BLS non-emergency base rate basically is if we go to Miles Hospital, pick somebody up for services that Miles can't provide and transport them to a facility in which those services can be provided. But they don't require any sort of ALS intervention either. We currently charge $420 for that. I'm proposing, again, $100 across the board to $520 for that. ALS non-emergency is basically what I explained before, transfer from Miles to Maine Med in using ALS supplies like a cardiac monitor or IV fluids or those types of things. We would charge currently $470. Again, looking to go to $570 for that. ALS level 1 emergency. So again, we're going back to somebody's house, picking them up for complaining of chest pain or shortness of breath, and we're utilizing ALS intervention medications, IV access, that sort of thing. The current rate for that is $675, proposing $775. So ALS level 2 basically is a service in which we use several interventions. It's something I can explain to you with the paper in front of you. Basically, it's a provision of 2 or more medications given over the course of the transport, or the use of endotracheal intubation or chest decompression, anything along those lines. Basically, it's a high level of ALS intervention that's provided by a paramedic in the emergency acute setting. We currently charge $845 for that. Again, proposing $945. The biggest jump I'm proposing would be in our specialty care transport or PIFT level transports. Those are transports from facility to facility in which we have to utilize resources outside of our scope. Meaning we have to take somebody from Miles to Maine Med who may have suffered a trauma, who requires blood, for instance. We have to take nurses from the hospital, more equipment, that sort of thing. And we actually, our paramedics here in Waldoboro, all are required to maintain a PIFT certification. So allows us to provide those level of runs. So currently we charge $950 for that. Looking to bump that $200 to $1150. And the reason for that is sometimes, specifically when we transport somebody from Penn Bay, if we transport them in the specialty care realm with extra hands from the hospital, staff members, et cetera, we have to take them back. So when we drop the patient off at Maine Med, we're heading not back to Waldoboro, we're headed back to Rockport. So, with the cost of wear and tear, diesel, that sort of thing, I would like to see us go up $200 on that. And that actually brings us up to a little closer to what the services around us are charging. Historically, we've been a little below. So what I have in front of me, this is provided from Comstar, our billing company. They provide us, when we go to make these changes or have these discussions, they provide us with an average of their top 50 clients as far as, the top billing clients. So we, for instance, if we did a BLS emergency rate discussion where we currently charge $500, the average top 50 is $1,553. And that includes a lot of urban area, like city areas like Massachusetts, Boston. They just have higher levels of service, higher levels of billing, more population, a younger population, that sort of thing. So we typically have maintained this sort of level where we're a little lower by virtue of the population that we serve, the amount of coverage area that we serve, and those types of things. So I'd like to see us stay in that realm of we're below the big top 50, but we're making an effort to offset some of those costs of diesel and wear and tear on the ambulances and supplies, as well as, just simple stuff like pay raises and that sort of thing. So if anybody has any questions, I'm here for and actually one more thing, it's pretty simple. If the select board agrees on this and it's voted upon, I fire off a form like this with our desired changes. You can pass it around, Bob, if you want. With our desired changes, I email it to the billing company and they enact it. So
Our last change was over a year ago.
I believe so. Yeah.
Yes, I believe
Yeah.
it was from what I remember, from what I could tell, was in February of 2021.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's probably time, given the way things have gone, economy wise and that sort of thing with prices, to typically we wouldn't review it annually. We'd review it every couple of years, every 3 years, whatever the situation may come about. typically, according to policy, by recommendation of the service chief. And right now I'm recommending it because of the changes in costs, so.
Robert?
I think we want to visit this again in 6 months.
Okay,
Sure. The word I'm getting is that towns are already looking at making adjustments because inflation is at 8% at the moment, and there's no indication it's going to go down. So it's impacting everything you've listed as a concern. The question is, if you ran a pro forma on what you're proposing as increases, what impact is that going to have on your revenue numbers, and will that cover the costs that you see coming down the pipe?
so probably not, but I think it's a start. I think, like you said, in 6 months, maybe we should see where we're at.
We are confined by Medicare rate and insurance rate.
It's clear.
But if we don't raise it, then the insurance doesn't
Right.
raise.
So we're,
Medicare, we can't do much about.
so we're allowed, so Medicare allowable is one of those terms that those of us in EMS management, we kind of gawk at a little bit, because we're allowed to bill X number of dollars in accordance with inflation, our cost for service, our cost for supply, so on and so forth. However, Medicare is only going to pay X number of dollars. See what I'm saying?
I do. I'm just making, I guess, the argument that Medicare is a driver in terms of the bottom number,
Yes.
but it's not a driver in terms of what we can potentially collect from people who've used our service. And yeah, we might have some uncollectible bills coming down the road, but we can shield against that somewhat by reserving the right to charge, at least to cover our costs.
Correct.
And if that's more than Medicare allows, understood. Some people won't meet that, but a lot of people will,
Yeah. Well, and a lot of people carry secondary insurances.
and they do.
And we have the collections policy now. All those things are good. Hence why I think this is a good start in recuperating some of those funds. But I'm with you, maybe in 6 months or 8 months, we can get reports from Comstar, has previously mentioned, on just how much this is impacting us and where we're at with diesel prices, medical supplies, so on and so forth. And just reviewing it more often than we have historically probably would be vital to our ongoing success in billing.
And one thing we don't want people to get the impression they shouldn't call, because we do have the ability for Waldeboro residents, if they call and they cannot pay their bill, we have a fund set up to help with that. So we do that through the Philbrook Fund. So I just don't want people thinking, oh no, if it's going up, I can't afford to pay that. I don't want to call the ambulance when they should call the ambulance because they need an ambulance.
So I will use that platform, this platform, and that conversation, or that piece of the conversation to just tell the public, we hear this a lot already on our calls for service. Folks are concerned about billing and the cost of ambulance service, and we totally understand it. And there's not a person that works for me on this organization that even considers that when they roll the door, except for me. And that's my job. And they just want to serve the public and make sure that they're providing the best level of care they can provide. The public should know, please do not hesitate to call us. We'll figure something out when it comes to this. This is just one of those things where we have to look at offsetting costs. Same thing with Warren and Union as far as those mutual aid agreements about billing and saying, hey, it's going to cost you X number of dollars when we cross the town line now, because the citizens of Waldeboro cannot subsidize the other coverage areas that we're providing so much service for. So this is another one of those efforts to just offset some of those inflation costs that are so drastic. So I do think this is a good start. And I think this kind of puts us, again, like I said, you'll look at the numbers of the average top 50 and you're going to say, holy smokes, this is astronomically high compared to what we charge. However, we also charge, we charge for loaded mile. And actually, back to that conversation, this is my proposal letter to Julie. You guys are attached to it. I can pass it around. Basically, it says those numbers. We currently charge $12.50, what we call a loaded mile. Loaded mile is a phrase we use for when a patient is in the ambulance going to a hospital. We charge a fee for that. Currently, we charge $12.50. The average of the top 50, like we mentioned before, is like $37. I'm looking to increase us to 1550 would be my proposal. And again, that in discussion with other services in the area, you have to be a little careful with how you ask these questions. There are some laws against that sort of thing, but you know, in discussion with those folks, these proposals sort of put us in the realm of what they're charging as well. So
I just know based on what you passed around, we're at about a third
yeah,
of what the big
Yeah.
city centers
right.
are
Those
charging.
average top 50.
That's an incredible difference.
And we make up for that a lot, Bob, in mileage, because we have so much mileage.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you'll find that if you put, you know, Bill A next to Bill B, based on geographic location, that we may be a third of the flat rate, but we are making up for it in the mileage fee. So that's why increasing the mileage fee on top of the flat rates is also vital to offsetting those costs. As a matter of fact, when I first started looking at this, I was just going to increase the loaded mile. And then conversations came up between myself and Julie, myself and local service chiefs. And it's like, no, you have to, if you're increasing, increase, you know, go across the board, increase all of your.
And we are right in the same ballpark as now with this increase that are surrounding.
Correct.
Chiefs are charging.
CLC, Booth Bay, you know, those types of things. We're, it's all pretty similar. So
So how does a loaded mile work vis-a-vis Medicare or Medicaid?
it's all part of the bill.
Okay.
Yep.
So they cover that.
It's not a separate thing. The billing company takes it all. They charge a flat rate and they attach the associated loaded mile to it. So. And actually, when they go to itemize that bill, so to speak, it's itemized between the flat rate and the loaded mile versus what we provide for care. We don't charge like per IV. We charge this rate based on what we do in the back of the ambulance plus loaded mile. So it's funny, I get a lot of requests for itemized bills, and I'm like, you've been given an itemized bill from the billing company. We don't do it like the hospital does it, where they tell you every sock you pay for, you know, so.
I make a motion, Mr. Chairman, that we accept the recommendation of our EMS chief and review this 6 months down the road to see where we are.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Is there any discussion? Discussion? Okay, proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Before the chief leaves, since I have you here captive, on election day, there was a cardiac event at the polls. And I got to see firsthand how amazing our EMS staff is. I happened to walk in at the moment when Derek himself was administering a drug to stop someone's heart and restart it. You don't see that often. You don't want to see that often. But I have to tell you, he was there with the patient. There was four other people actually in the room. There was somebody there who was training to be a medic. And I have to tell you, I was so proud of the entire staff. And just watching Derek, who is so professional, and just the level of how he said it, and I've told this story quite a few times, is, so I'm going to give you something that's going to stop your heart and restart it. And it was just so calm. And I'm thinking, if I was doing that, I'd be like, I'm going to give you something that's going to stop your heart. And gosh, I hope it starts that. You know, which probably wouldn't be a good choice of career for me. But I just am in awe of, and I say this all the time, you're angels that walk around, but I am in total awe. And we are very blessed to have an excellent care team.
I'm pretty proud of them too. So
Well, it was you doing most of it that time,
I
so
was just showing off.
just, I know. But I just wanted to bring that up publicly, and thank you for all you do.
Of course.
Okay, is there any opposition to this motion?
Oh,
Motion approved.
Sorry.
So
You
I'll
need
pass,
to
I'll pass
yell
it
at me
along,
sometimes.
pass it along to the billing company as early as tomorrow. So
Here's your copy.
thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Question. Thanks, Chief. You up? Brendan, did you have anything else you'd like to mention, or does anybody have any questions for Brendan from his presentation?
Well, I don't have a question, but I would also like a chance to speak if I could.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, we'll move on to the next. Your
Good evening. My name is Deidre Degnan Murray. I was actually here at the last select board meeting, which was on the day that we held the election. And I spoke about the disposition of the Friendship Street School. And two things in particular I talked about were the need for increased transparency, perhaps, from the select board in the town, and also to involve voters with what's going on with town. And I would like to say, and it's unfortunate that Chief kind of like interrupted, I had read Brendan's analysis of the proposed disorderly property ordinance before the election. And I thought that his analysis was spot on. I share a lot of the same concerns that he has, particularly the lack of due process. And so tonight I would like to talk about litigation. So maybe this information already exists on the town webpage, and I apologize if it does, but I can't find some basic information, like who our town attorney is. I can't find it. And forgive me for saying this, but our website isn't very user friendly, the town website. I use the search function, and if I search on attorney, it pulls up a bunch of forums that have the word attorney in them, but not the information that I'm actually looking for. So, you know,
We use 3 different ones,
okay,
but it's probably not on the website. If it is, it's under appointments. So Bernstein Shore,
yeah, I put you on the spot.
yeah, you did. And it went totally out of my head. Bernstein Shore, Woodsum, Drummond Woodsum, and we also use the MMA attorneys a lot also. And Maine Municipal Association's legal
Okay.
department. And for local things, normally like if we have property issues or something like that, we use Cumler and Lynch.
Okay, so 4. 3, 4?
Yeah, I guess I don't really consider the MMA, that's a service that we utilize because we're a member of the Maine Municipal Association.
Okay, so quick question. Did you work with the attorneys for the
Yes, we
proposed-
did.
Okay, and there was no concern about the lack of due process?
We were actually referred to, and forgive me because this is going back months, a specific town in Cumberland County that used that ordinance successfully. And let me give you some history too. That wasn't something that the select board came up with. It was brought to us by Karen and our community navigator. And part of it was because we were getting a lot of complaints from tenants who live in what she would consider very poor conditions. We had residents, and if you go back even further than when this ordinance actually came up, over the last 3 years, and correct me if I'm wrong, any of the select board, at least 3 years, we've had repeated visits from residents of specifically one mobile home park and neighbors that surround it. And that was one way that Karen Ann had found through, and it was reading about in the newspaper, Rockland's ordinance, that it was going to be perhaps another tool to be able to address these consistent complaints from residents, not only that live with issues, but are affected by the issues that the people who are frequently having police visits and things like that that are an issue. And at times are dangerous. So it was giving, and I think part of it too is some of these residents that came to complain, they're like, you know, at what point does a landlord have to do something? You know, what point does the landlord have to say, you know, we can't have this anymore, because it's putting the rest of us at danger, or that was the impetus behind it. It certainly wasn't to, in my opinion, create what was described, but it was trying to be a tool to be helpful, to actually help the people who need it the most. So that gives you just the history, and that's who the attorneys are.
Sure.
I got a little off the base on that.
And again, I agree with Brendan, it's draconian. It maybe goes a little too far. Not going to argue about whether we needed a measure sort of like this. But as a taxpayer, I have a concern about exposure to litigation and the administrative cost of that litigation, and also any potential judgments or settlements. It's going to be funded by taxpayers. So I also, interestingly, I had watched the select board, I wasn't here in person on May 10th, but I had watched the select board meeting, the video. And during that meeting, there was a lengthy discussion of a property that had fallen into disrepair in town and that had been cited and fined. And during that discussion, a motion was made by the select board to cut this individual's fine in half. So I'm curious as to whether cutting somebody's fine in half had been approved by the town attorney, or whether that was just a motion for the moment trying to settle the deal and resolve the matter. Because it seems to me it's going
So
to
that fine setting is within the purview of the select board.
okay.
So
It just seems a little arbitrary and capricious to just cut somebody's fine in half. And I understand where we're trying to settle the issue, but unfortunately, the individual in question refused the generous offer of having the fine cut in half and jumped up and said, "See you in court." And that's the last I've actually heard on that. But what would be helpful as a taxpayer here in town for me would be to know what open litigation the town currently has, both as a plaintiff and a defendant. This information is of course public. It's a public record when the town is involved in a court action or a suit. It would be helpful if the town would share this information with the voters. For instance, the town report includes dozens of delinquent property taxpayers. There's actually in our annual town report 7 pages of people who are delinquent with their taxes. It would be helpful to have an accounting of the property liens and the legal action being taken here in order to understand what's going on.
So legally, when we're required to have the report has to be printed before the action on the tax liens are taken.
Okay, so again, maybe this doesn't.
And it's done at a public meeting like tonight. That's one of the things where we took bids. It's publicized. Tax liens are publicized. They're advertised in the newspaper.
Is it on the webpage? Because I don't get the newspaper, I'm sorry.
Yes, it was posted also on the website. I hear you if you think it's
just having
not.
a hard time finding. things.
Yeah, I can see, we always take advice on that, but we have to follow the legal letter of the law when it comes to liens, so that's not something we could put in the town report, but it is done in public, all of that. The bid opening was in public for the bids, for the ones that are tonight that the select board has to decide. So it's all done very publicly.
I might also point out that the reality is far different from the appearance when you look at the town report. Our collection rates on real estate taxes are hugely high. Very, very few exceptions. And you see those exceptions when you look at the agenda, because there are often quick claim deeds mentioned on the agenda. That means those people have paid their taxes and the liens have disappeared. So that gives you a far better gauge of who's not paying their taxes. Most people by far in Waldoboro pay their taxes.
Okay, so this is like, the issue I'm raising is bigger than just the property tax liens. It's all litigation. It would be helpful for us as voters to know what's at stake here, what's open litigation.
We don't have any at the moment.
Okay, that's good to know. Maybe if we could organize the website so that there was a place where we could list that in the event that there is open litigation. We could list the case number, the date that the action was taken, identify whether the town is the plaintiff or the defendant, a brief synopsis, and then once it's resolved, the disposition. And this could just be a monthly update, like every month it gets updated as things drop on or new things come up. Not, like a labor intensive sort of thing, but just so that the public can see what's going on. So what you're saying is, in spite of the threat made at the select board meeting in May, there's been no suit brought and the town is not involved in any other litigation at this point?
Not that I'm aware of. There's been nothing filed.
Is there something going on with the parking lot behind the pharmacy?
Nothing has been filed. I don't have a current lawsuit.
Okay. All right, I just,
And just so you know, that is a favorite go-to of a lot of people. We're going to sue you. It's very commonplace to hear that. Somebody doesn't like that they can't register their car because they don't have the forms they need. That becomes an issue. So that's something we hear frequently.
sure, but I am legitimately concerned about the exposure that we have on the disorderly property ordinance. That there are issues there that Brendan very nicely detailed, particularly around the due process aspect. For me, that's where my concern is. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other comments from the audience? All right, select board comments. Bob?
I've got a few. Allison Laken's Gorgeous Cheeses Farmers Market has been on Facebook for the last couple of weeks. It's open Mondays from 3 to 6, and we've got some interesting vendors there. I hope everybody takes some time at some point to drive down Friendship Road. About 4.5 miles, it's on the right, and there's a big flag out when they're open, and you'll see the vendors out in the field. It's worth a visit. Are we gonna, I guess I'm raising the question of the select board at some time, maybe putting the triangle across from AD Gray, assuming Volunteers of America is not interested in it for their purposes, up for auction, see if the town can sell it, assuming the town doesn't need it. Some people have expressed an interest in that. I wanted briefly to talk about developments of the MRC, the Municipal Review Committee, the bondholder, the receiver.
That's on the agenda, Bob.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Too many meetings today. So is Liz McCormick. She's on the agenda. And Don Campbell, well, we'll hear from Stan on that today, won't we?
I don't believe that is on.
It's not on the agenda. I'm just wondering if Stan said he'd get back to us in a couple of weeks. Any news or?
I went up there this afternoon with Max, and they have started cleaning it up.
Yep.
There's 3 trucks there. One is going to the recycling. And the other one, they're taking a motor out of one, but the other one, so another one will be gone. That should be gone within 2 weeks.
She's making progress. Yeah. And the Historical Society wants to be sure that if and when the 80 Gray building is taken down, we keep one set of outdoor light fixtures. The lintel, if it's retrievable, if it's not granite, it probably isn't. I think it's probably poured concrete, but if it's granite, it has the name of the school engraved in it. They'd like to retain that. And the time capsule, of course, which is in the cornerstone of the building. It would be nice to have that retrieved and maybe opened in public. So,
Maybe if it's 250th.
sorry,
Maybe for the
maybe the
250th.
250. Yep.
I have nothing. All set.
Nothing?
No, just like usual.
Well, I don't have a whole lot. I did have an opportunity to go up to the Historical Society for a meeting and just an overview of what some of their plans are. They're working with a local architect company, and I was very impressed. It looks good. I'm kind of excited about that. So I thought that was good news. Also, this week I've heard lots of talk about the 250th anniversary, people who are interested in helping out. So, and that is on July
11th.
July 6th.
6th.
Right here at 6, correct? To have people come in and learn more about what subcommittees there are and what opportunities people have to work on that. So, and one other thing that I've already forgotten, you mentioned it, but you started to. It will come or not.
I don't have anything this week.
Julie,
2 things. I received a request for garbage cans at the quarry and at the park across from, what's the new name of the park across from Hannaford?
Madomic River Rest Area.
Madomic River Rest Area. We had them before. There were some issues, which is why they were removed. We'd like to try it again. And the quarry one would be Officer Joslin is actually who brought this to us. And he would volunteer when he is on duty to empty those cans for us. So it's not something that would fall on Public Works. And it's supported by the Conservation Committee, and I just need your approval to put them back.
You want a motion?
Yes.
I'll make that motion.
I've seconded.
is there any discussion?
Good idea.
All in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed? Motion carried.
The other thing that I have is we received from the Maine Municipal Association of Legislative Policy. We need to vote for 2 people to sit on this policy. Only 2 in Newcastle put their names in, and one is Sarah Macy. She's the town manager in the Newcastle, and Dusty Jones, a select board member in the town of Wiscasset. So I just would need you to confirm that those 2 people is who you would be voting for, and then you would just have to sign this.
Hey, is there any is
We need
there a
on
motion
that.
to,
I'll make that motion.
is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion on this? If not, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor? All opposed? Motion carried.
You just have to sign that there. That's all I have.
Next on the agenda, is there a motion to approve the consent calendar?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, raise your hand. All opposed?
Discussion.
Oh, yeah.
Discussion? Okay,
Correspondence.
did I miss discussion? What discussion? What would you like?
Well, we have a thank you
Share.
note from one of our college students. who says, "I want to thank you for your generosity and support in helping me achieve my goals. I am honored and deeply appreciative to be the recipient of the George Ganthner Scholarship. I just finished my first year at the University of Maine in Orono as a kinesiology major. I had a great first year. I enjoyed most of my courses, my favorite being sport injury and prevention, where I learned skills such as splinting, CPR, first aid, and more. Math was definitely my least favorite. I also met a variety of new people and had fantastic professors. Thank you again for your support in my education." That's from Mackenzie Emerson.
All right, any other comment? All right, that takes us to new business.
So. Special town meeting warrant article. Um, If you'll recall, back in May, we called the budget committee back in to, was it May? Yeah, it was May. It was May. To talk about purchase of an ambulance. If you'll recall, after the budget was finalized and the ballot was printed, Derek found out that, Chief Booker found out that ambulances are between 18 and 24 months out, which means if we waited till it was in the proper capital year to order the ambulance, we might have to wait even longer for an ambulance. So at that meeting, we had discussed several options. We went back and talked to the auditor. And it was his suggestion that we have a special town meeting that would read the first article, or article number 2, because article number 1 is to choose a moderator. Article number 2 would be, shall the town raise and appropriate up to $300,000 to fund the following capital reserve account? And that would be ambulance replacement. At the time of that meeting, we talked about, should we just save for 2 years in the capital fund? And then we would have the money to purchase it, or should we finance it? So we already have half of the purchase in the capital fund. So article number 3 would be, shall the town expend up to $300,000 from ambulance capital reserve to fund a new ambulance? So that would allow us, if next year we put another 150 in, we could fund it through the capital reserve fund. And article number 4 is, shall the town vote to borrow up to $150,000 for up to 5 years to fund the purchase of a new ambulance? And that would allow us, if we need to, say, by some miracle, we get it sooner than we think, sooner than we can appropriate funds in the next budget, we could at least finance it, then we could pay it off and during the next budget cycle. So those first 3 articles, 2, 3, and 4, deal with the purchase of the ambulance, and it gives us some room to make a decision with the select board and the budget committee of which way we should go. Because it's true, we can order an ambulance without having the money on hand. It's just not something we should do. Warrant article number 5, this on the warrant that the town voted on June 14th. We need to fix the percentage rate that is charged. So it would be, shall the town vote to fix the 15th day of November 2022 and the 15th day of May 2023, when all 2023 taxes shall be due and payable in semi-annual installments, and to instruct the tax collector to charge interest at 4% per annum on all taxes unpaid after said date. And it had been 9, which is what it was prior, and now it's at 4%. And that is set every year. I now know, I didn't know this before, on January 20th by the state treasurer. That also, the same thing that when he sets that, warrant article number 6, shall the town vote to pay interest at, this says 0% per annum on any amount overpaid on property taxes as noted in MRSA Title 36 506A. That typically is 4%. But when the state treasurer set the rate to charge for delinquent taxes at 4%, that then changes what you can charge or pay if somebody overpays back to them. So 4% is the delinquent rate. 0% is what we would pay somebody back if they overpay their taxes. And this was totally the warrant article 5 and 6. That was a total error on my part. I was not aware that the January 20th date was set. When I spoke with Daryl, it's normally something that comes in when the state sends down our valuations and we work on the mill rate. But now we know, Peg and I put it in our budget books so that we know to look this up. You know, normally we're waiting for the revenue numbers from the state. So at least we know on the 20th we'll have these. So I apologize for the error. We handed out little papers at the election to let people know after they voted. And I did check with Maine Municipal on that once we discovered there was an error. And the meeting, the hearing would be on July 12th, Pam, is that right? And then the actual town meeting would be here and it would be on my birthday, July 26th, because everybody should have a town meeting on their birthday. Good thing.
So you want the dates, a motion for those dates?
Yes.
I'll make
And to
that motion.
approve the warrant articles.
Make a motion to approve the warrant articles and dates set for the public hearing and the
Is there a second? Is there any discussion?
I'm just wondering if we want to tweak Article 4 to read that the town authorizes the select board to borrow up to $150,000 on such terms as it deems appropriate. So we know who's doing it on behalf of the town or the town manager. But we ought to authorize somebody in the town or some group in the town to actually borrow the money.
I got this directly from the auditor, so I am assuming that you can do that.
Okay,
There's an extra will in there. Isn't there?
Shall the town vote?
yeah, there's an extra
Will
will in there as
Smith,
well.
We'll start.
we get too many wills.
Yeah, too many bills.
Any more discussion? All in favor of the motion?
So I just
Time
want,
out.
I just want to make sure I understand. Shall the town vote to borrow up to $150,000 for up to 5 years to purchase a new ambulance? And what do you want us to say?
I wouldn't put a term in there. I mean, what if we look at rates and it makes sense to go out 7 years? I would leave that open and leave it to the select board's discretion. I don't know why the auditor put 5 years in there. That ties our hands a little bit.
Well, I just don't know why. Well,
I mean, I think the select board ought to.
so
decide
that's
the
probably
term.
my fault because that was how we talked about purchases at the budget committee level of how long we would fund things at certain amounts.
Right. And I'm not arguing with that. I'm just saying, don't tie our hands on the term because we might find ourselves in a better borrowing position at a beyond the 5-year term. That's it. And the ambulance probably have a longer life than 5 years anyway. Just a suggestion. I'm not,
So you would say, shall the town vote to borrow up to 150,000 for terms?
on terms that the select board deems appropriate.
I will run that through up the flagpole and see how that goes. But if not, well, then we could revert to the old language.
Yeah, that's fine.
And I will.
You won't table this.
Well, because I want to have the public hearing. 'Cause we have to get the ambulance ordered.
Yeah, we do.
What I'll do is I'll amend my motion to match that. Whoever seconded it, has to second it. I don't know who seconded it.
I think
I did, I don't-
Bob did.
I'll withdraw my second and.
No, I was just gonna amend my motion.
Okay,
And
I'm
you just-
just a second. So go ahead and amend it.
So whatever Bob said.
Well, the other thing I'd just like to point out is that if you have questions like that, or you're gonna make amendments, if I can know before, so I can run that by the professionals, that'd be helpful.
Is there any other discussion? We'll vote on the motion as amended. All in favor? Raise your right hand. All opposed? Motion carries. 11.2, Sylvania Walking Trails. Max.
Oh, quick. So Sylvania Development Committee still at work trying to come up with a master plan, and we're going to be getting a survey out hopefully in July for the residents to have a broader scope of the whole area. But until then, there's been some interest in developing the area along the shoreline into a trail system, and I walked out 2 Fridays ago with Mike Thayer, who's in the audience tonight, as well as Leslie, the chair of the Conservation Commission, and Pete Nichols from the Midcoast Conservancy. Really, we just need to know if it's fine from the select board if work can start on trails down there.
Do you want a motion?
Motion would be nice. Unless I'm forgetting something, Mike or Will.
Do you have anything to add, Mike? Sorry. Sorry. Colonel.
I walked the site even before this, and if you approach the site from the south, it's easy to walk down to the shore. But in the north end of the site, it's a really steep embankment where they built most of the parking lot or something. In order to make like a circuit trail, so you could follow the river from north to south or south to north, there would have to be some modest amount of construction. I mean, nobody's going to be able to climb up that embankment. I was there and it was a dry day, but it was, the grass was dewy and man, it was really difficult to get up. So in order to be useful, it's not just some trails and some trailer marking. It probably needs to be stairs. The other thing that happened was ticks. We were deterred by the ticks going in from the south side. We walked 100 yards in or so, and but we were literally covered with everyone that had 4 or 5 ticks on. So there's going to be some town expenses like mowing to keep the grass down so you're not walking through high grass. So it's not just an okay to do a trail system. I think we need to flesh out the proposal, what it's going to look like.
So, sorry, Colonel, I'll just have it.
Just a question, how high is that embankment? Approximate feet.
It's probably a 1 to 2 embankment. And it's 20 feet or more, 20, 25 feet, something like that in length. It's really hard to get up. I'm old, but I hike, but it was really.
I'm not shaking my head that you're old. I'm saying, when I walked it at all, when I walked it too, I was with some gazelle-like people, and they were like billy goats up it. I was not. It was a difficult.
Yeah, it
I
was
agree.
very tough, and there's going to be some clearing, and I've already volunteered to do a lot of the clearing and things like that. But after this gets, there's going to be ongoing maintenance costs associated with mowing and upkeep for that stair or whatever it is. Maybe it's just railroad ties embedded in the ground or something like that. But just something to make it easier to walk on. So, what's your authorizing to go forward is gonna involve some town expense, I guess.
Bob, go
So
ahead.
I thought the committee was looking to lay out a plan for the trail, not necessarily at this point to do work beyond what's necessary to lay out the plan for the trail.
Oh, well, that's fine. If the board wants to authorize that, but I think we should come back and the board.
Exactly.
That's-
Yeah, so
that's what I was gonna
the
say.
motion would be to
Is there a
work with
plan?
Midcoast and the Conservation Committee and the Sylvania Development Committee to come up with a trail plan
Yes.
and indicate what you think is going to be needed to have it work.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna
That's
suggest,
what
is
I'd move.
bring it back as a plan or something
Yeah.
like that, so we know what we're getting ourselves into.
Is there a second?
Well, I don't think we need to vote on that.
Yeah.
I think we'll just give them a
Just come back.
recommendation
Just
before
say,
we
okay.
make a motion to. Yeah,
Is that
yes,
what you were looking for,
I
Max?
mean, it was more of just people from Midcoast Conservancy, Conservation Commission, or people from Sylvania Development Committee will be going down there and doing some more
Yeah.
work there. So if someone calls you and says, hey, who are those people on Sylvania?
No.
It should be one of those three groups,
Yeah.
pretty much.
That's good to me. I'm excited they're getting started on something.
Thank you, Max.
That's a good start.
That's cool.
Okay, 11.3, Board of Appeals applicant. Norman?
You Liz McCormick,
Mhm.
amazing. This woman has had an amazing career. I mean, her resume is attached to the file. She's articulate. She's had experience with appeals issues, working in her job. She understands property issues. She's a great candidate for the Board of Appeals and kind of hoping maybe for the Conservation Commission or some other committees and boards in town. She's got the energy. She has the experience. She's a treasure. We're lucky we've got her here. So I would move to put her on the appeals board.
I'll second.
Is there any discussion? All in favor of putting Liz McCormick on the appeals, Board of Appeals? Raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. Passed. 11.4, tax acquired property.
The tax acquired property bids were opened last Thursday. Pam, am I correct? There were 8 items. 2 of these items, item number
6 and 8.
I think it's 6 and 8.
The withdrawals.
Which are the withdrawals? We had 2 people withdraw their bids. Item 2. Here, you can take one down. This is updated. Item 8. 2 and 8. They withdrew their bids. And item eight and item 2, I believe, both have people who are willing to make payment on that. And since they are existing owners, I was assuming that the select board would allow that payment to be made. Is anybody here for any of the items that's going to make payment? What's your address?
We're done with no more trail path, well, skip that.
Item 2.
Item
Item
two,
Yeah, which is
right.
item 2.
Yep.
Mhm.
Okay, to pay the.
Yes, yes. So item 2 and item 8, we had
And
existing.
item 8, I believe, is in the back corner.
Existing residents here. So if, you know, if Rose is still in the office. And see if she can take payment. Item 1, 19 Hoke Road, I don't know if you're aware, that is where there was a fire. It's, there's an area to clean up there. That one had 3 bids. Emmy Homes and Land bid $15,151.51. That was the winning bid. And item number 3, Max, did you want to talk about item 3 or item 4?
Sure. Which one's item 3?
So if you would like to go see Rose, she is available to take payment right now.
No, thank you.
Just go right in the door to your left.
I'm coming.
Item number 3 is 40 Campbell Hill Road.
Yep.
And item number 4 is 151.
So I believe 151 is the one that's actually just north of Quarry Hill, and I believe landlocked piece of property. There's no home currently on it. It could be something that could be kept in the town's possession and then merged into Quarry Hill, if that's an option the town wants to go with. I think the other one had a road that already went through it and some buildings, and I wouldn't want to. That's the one I wouldn't want the town to get.
These are both off 220, right?
No.
Depot Street.
Steeple Street, sorry, yeah. Depot Street.
How big is the 151 Campbell Hill? How big a property is that?
3 acres.
3 acres. So that add on to the quarry
Yep.
property itself?
Yep.
It's attached to it.
It's already abutting it.
But item 40, item number 3, 40 Campbell Hill Road. The winning bid for that was Black Watch Company Incorporated for $13,000. Item number 5, 914 Old Augusta Road. That was, the highest bid for that was $85,400. Item number 6, the highest bid for that was $2.
No, we got one for 1,000.
There's one for 1,000.
That is one of the ones that was.
Withdrawn.
Well, it might be. Did they leave that one on? They did. They left that one on. That's $1,000. And then 184 Burkett Mill Road. The winning bid on that was David A. Clark, $7,000.
Do we want to go through these individually and vote on them?
We can, but I just wanted to give you like the overview of what. Your thoughts were, and I wanted to make sure that the people who who come after the date, after they got their final notice, that they had the opportunity to. Okay.
Do we know anything about the bidders themselves? Have they presented any?
They don't have to.
They don't have to
They
say.
do not have to, no.
Do you want us to go through them one by one?
One by
Okay,
one.
all right. Yes.
So 19, item number 1, 19 Hope Road. There were 3 bids. Main Homes and Land, $15,151.51. Tim Dodge and Tamika Dodge bid $3,000. Jesse Camp and Guard bid $1,050. And again, this is, that's the location that burned. It would involve property cleanup.
I make the motion to item 1 to go to Main Homes and Land LLC for $15,151.51.
Second.
During discussion. All in favor? Raise your right hand. All opposed?
And just so you're aware, they do have a certain amount of time before they have to come, bring certified check and make payment for the property. And we fulfilled all of our legal notices. Everybody has signed what they needed to sign. So Rose prepared this. It took an inordinate amount of time to prepare to make sure it was all done the proper way. Next is
Number 3.
number 3.
Make a
And that
motion.
is 40 Campbell Hill Road. And again, this is vacant land. And the winning bid for this one was Black Watch Company at 13,000. The next one was Damian Benner and Russell Fox at 10,000. Lance Bennett at $6,501.01. And Larry B. Wellman at $6,320. And someone who did not provide their name also bid, but since they did not provide their name, they did not follow the procedure. They were just not included, but their bid was for $500.
Make a motion, we award it to Black Watch Company Inc. for 13,000.
Second, any discussion? All in favor? All opposed? Motion carried.
Item 4, I didn't know if you had any thoughts on maybe potentially wanting to keep that. Max did review it and brought it to me for that purpose.
I'd move we keep it.
I second that. And it's an addition to the quarry
Yeah.
property.
Is there any discussion?
I agree with.
Other discussion? All in favor?
Yep.
All opposed? Motion carried.
Item number 5, 914 Old Augusta Road. That does have a home on it, and that highest bidder was Donna Miller, Les Jordan, $85,400. The second highest bidder was Coburn Jameson, $50,000. The third highest bidder was Main Homes and Land, $40,404. Jordan Anna Newbert, excuse me, $21,650, and another unnamed person at $500.
Make a motion to award it to Donna Miller and Les Jordan for 85,400.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
I believe those are the people that own the Wiscasset Raceway.
All opposed?
Donna Miller?
Motion carried.
Item number 6 is a 1987 mobile home.
Mhm.
170 Lady Slipper Lane. Highest bidder was Damian Benner, Russell Fox for $1,000. And the next bidder was Fred Best for $2. And this is a vacant mobile
Okay.
home.
Is it, I assume it's habitable.
I can send Stan up if you want to table it.
I mean, I just soon get rid of it.
Well, is that not gonna happen? I mean, will it be towed off and put somewhere else or?
We don't know,
We don't.
but
How about we award it, and if they don't take it, then we gotta figure out what to do with it.
Well, is part of the package a requirement that they take it or occupy it, or haven't we made that a requirement?
so
They own it.
they own it.
Mhm.
Whether, I don't know. Again, this is a specific process we have to file. I don't know if Fred has made arrangements with them or not. I don't know.
I'm gonna do this and make that motion
I'll
to award it to Damian Benner and Russell Fox for $1,000.
I'll second. the
Second,
motion.
okay, any discussion? All in favor? All opposed? Motion carried.
Item number 7, 184 Burkett Mill Road. Again, this was a piece of land, as Max said, we believe is landlocked.
Mhm.
The highest bidder was David Clark at $7,000, Les Jordan at $5,100, and unnamed person at $500.
Make a motion, we award item 7 to David A. Clark for $7,000.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All in favor? All opposed? Motion carried.
I just want to say that Rose worked very hard to make sure everybody was duly noticed. Everything was done as far as proper notification and even went the extra mile to make sure that the people, the inhabitants of specifically 2 of these homes that we knew about were noticed several times. So that's why. I don't think anybody's looking to make anybody homeless. It's just, we had to follow the procedure.
Okay, under old business, 12.1, MRC update.
So the MRC's met a couple of times, the board has met a couple of times. And the receiver, the bondholder, and the MRC are in agreement that the MRC should buy this plant that cost well over $50 million for $1.5 million. It's in front of the court at the moment because the court needs to consider those who have claims against assets on the property and whether or not they have priority, and if so, how they stand in line behind the bondholders, if they stand in line behind the bondholders. The receiver has made it pretty clear if it doesn't go through on the terms that the bondholder, the receiver, and the MRC agreed, that they're not going to sell it that way. They'll do something else, and I don't know what it would be. So the hearing date, I think, is going to be set for July 1st. We'll have another meeting tomorrow, so there'll be more updates. And my hope is that the MRC ends up owning it. And then we're in charge of our own garbage. If the MRC also operates it. The MRC elects to bring on a partner, then it will depend on what the partner's objectives are in being a partner and how they see the plant playing a role in their own economic model or business plan going forward. But if it's in gear, it's in motion, we're finally getting some kind of direction with this thing. It was sitting in limbo for what, since 2020, April of 2020, dating myself. We're finally getting some movement on this plant. And it would be nice to see some light at the end of the tunnel by the end of this month, hopefully, like 2 days from now. Yeah, that's my.
Okay, thank you. Okay, 12.2, update on Waldeboro's 250th year celebration. John, did you want to talk about that or any other?
Again.
With that big salary you get, you know.
Yeah.
I put you on the spot.
I just came here to listen. You said you were.
Okay.
Most of you know me, I'm John Blodgett. I attended a meeting going on a month now. Waldeboro's 250th birthday is here next year. And I was honored to be chosen as the chair of the committee. Thank you. So we have big plans. We're right now in the baby, we're at the 80,000 foot level. Eventually we'll get down to ground level. But we have 9 board members, the main board. We are going to have subcommittees forming here starting on July 6th, next Wednesday. We're going to have a meeting here, like a public meeting for anyone that wants to come and hear about our plans for 250th birthday. And hopefully we can get some folks to join these subcommittees. There'll be a dance committee. I'm sorry, not an entertainment committee, fundraising committee, parade committee, fireworks committee.
Oh, there's one.
Activities. I remember that one.
Yeah, activity.
Yeah.
And hoping to get some volunteers to help form this. We've only got a year to plan it. So we hope to have a lot of people here involved in the next 9, 10, 11 months to get this event going. And my thought is, and I'm sure the other board members feel the same way, is hopefully it's going to be nothing more than Waldeboro Day on steroids. And we can help boost the Waldeboro Days in the future, because unfortunately COVID has kind of dropped everything off for all towns to get community events like this going. So hopefully we can boost it back up and we can move forward for the 300.
Do you want to give the date?
Yeah. Oh, the day of the birthday next year. It's June 16th and 17th of 2023.
Ooh, so it's gonna be a 2-day event.
Two-day
Yeah.
event.
Awesome.
Yep,
Yeah, that's what we're planning right now.
mark your calendars.
And we're planning on a lot of big stuff. I was at the bicentennial 1973. That was a week long. And
Wow.
that
I was only 2 years old, so I don't remember.
Yeah, I wasn't much older, so. But we want to do good things next year. Thanks for putting me on the spot.
Blame me.
Thanks for sharing.
Anytime.
Okay.
Bob, you had something about the 250th birthday you started.
Money.
Yeah, just to encourage, to pick up on what John said, to encourage people to attend and have fun, because this is an opportunity for having fun. Working on the committee is, some people think it's a burden. It's not. It's really an opportunity to have some fun, get to know some people, socialize, and do something for the town to boot. And yeah, the motion to authorize the Waldeboro Day funding for the 250th anniversary Waldeboro Day event in 2023.
But isn't there we only add $1,000 to that, correct?
We don't control that. That's not our fund that we control.
We put it on the warrant.
As a budget.
Waldeboro Day
budget
is
item.
on the warrant.
The budget line for it.
Yeah, there's a budget line for it.
Yeah,
I'd just like that to be very, very clear that that budget line in 2023 that it be allocated to the anniversary committee for them to deal with. John's already coordinated with the Waldeboro Day committee, so we're not pulling anything fast on them here. They just want to have a source of funding available and known instead of, so we're not operating in the dark about whose money we're spending or how we're spending it.
so
We'll talk to Marcus about writing the checks and stuff. I know he has signature authority, but
so we just have to, we turn that over to the Waldeboro Day Committee.
that's what the budget line item says.
Yes,
So
they can have their own arrangement.
Would be
With you
really
guys.
nice to the Waldeboro Day.
well,
Committee.
I guess we'll have
And
to
we're
be nice
really
to them,
working,
or
well,
we-
we're working with them. We're
We
working
are.
together.
You're working
That's true.
together. I
Yeah,
don't
we are
think that
working
should be an
together.
issue.
I don't think it'll be an issue.
But I
at
don't
all.
think you have the authority as a select board to have given it to one and then say, after the vote, we're gonna go.
No, this vote is actually going to take place before the event. But when we're talking about the budget, I mean, we're going to be requesting hopefully a little more money to support this anniversary thing.
Understood, Bob, but are you talking about next year's budget or the budget that we just passed?
Not the one we passed,
Oh, okay.
because there's nothing left in that budget. I mean, we've spent most of it on,
So are you
oh,
talking about
sorry,
the
I'm
budget?
wrong,
You're
Right,
wrong.
because
I
it's
am
before, yeah.
completely wrong.
That's
So the 2022, 23, 2020,
324.
2022, 23 budget has, I think, $2,500 allocated as a line item for Waldeboro Day.
Correct.
And I think the committee feels they just want to make sure that the anniversary committee has,
So what I'm telling you is it went to vote on the ballot, the warrant, and it said for the Waldeboro Day Committee.
it did.
So
We can't change that.
you don't have the authority as the select board to change that.
We can
I'm
ask,
sure that when we give it to them
Yeah.
and you talk to the Waldeboro Day Committee, they will be glad to share, is my understanding.
Okay. And I'm told there's something like $600 or $400 in the account as it now stands.
Like I said, that is not an account that the town controls. It's not a town account. We give the money to the Waldeboro Day Committee. It is not connected to the town. It's not one of our town accounts.
Okay.
Is that going to be enough money to?
No, we're gonna have,
We're
we're gonna
gonna
fundraise.
fundraise.
We're gonna have,
Yeah,
we're gonna
have
raise
to fund
funds,
We fundraise.
It's the stuff we'd like to do.
but we'd like to know that, all right. So you're saying that this board has absolutely no control or authority over the Waldeboro Day Committee, is what you're saying?
It's not one of our bank accounts.
And yet the money is raised from taxes.
Just like we don't have any control over when we give money to the library or we give money to the Historical Society, how it's spent. I wasn't here when this was set up
I know
many,
you
many
weren't.
years
And-
ago. I'm
And
just
and Peg has made it clear, it is a separate check. It's like a checkbook.
It's not even a
That
town
is-
checkbook.
No, it's not. She said
It's
a
never
Waldeboro
had,
Day
you know,
checkbook.
We give the money to Waldeboro Day Committee and they do what they.
All right, so,
Think it's
But
good.
they're gonna, we're all gonna work together.
yeah,
I don't think. it's-
One more thing I meant to ask is, just the support. We're gonna be asking for a lot of support from the town as far as fire, EMS, public works, police, things like that as we get closer.
it would be great. I know you have a good working relationship with all of them.
Get them involved.
We just need to know in advance.
Oh, absolutely.
So like the day before, when you need the road blocked off, please let us know when.
Well, hopefully I'll get them involved like 6 months prior.
Yes, yes,
One way or
yes.
another,
That would be great.
doing floats and.
Oh,
doing
we're gonna do
things like that.
floats. Okay,
It'll be good.
cool.
Plan your float.
I'm gonna plan my float.
But I just don't hope we, bring it up. Well, we're not gonna do that.
I know. No, we'll have a great time. It'll be great.
Okay, on late breaking news, Julie wanted me to, I made a comment to her, and you may have read it in your notes, about what it looks like for our elderly, older people who are on fixed incomes, or maybe no income at all, about what we're headed toward this fall, what we're in now, really, as far as rents, as far as fuel, food, almost anything to live costs so much more than it did a year ago. And I think we're heading toward a time where, as a town, we ought to think about how we're going to respond, prepare, and plan on helping our less fortunate citizens. And so there's an LCTV presentation on the July 2nd. It's on a Friday that we're gonna take part in. We're gonna, but we want to put our heads together and see what we can come up with, maybe look for donations to go into that from some of our more fortunate citizens to take care of some that may need some help.
I actually had an individual stop yesterday and talk to me and saw the line at the food pantry. The car was parked all the way down to Friendship Street. And he said, really, is it really that bad in Marlboro? I said, yeah, it is. It's actually gotten worse. It moderated back down and now it's back up again. And they were horrified. They couldn't believe that how many people are actually struggling.
So I think part of it is, and what they've noticed is there's a spike in children. And part of that is school's out. We have the lunch wagon, we put that out again so that people are aware of the lunch wagon. But I think part of the thing people are missing too is that, well, people aren't working, some people aren't working. Some of it is because there's no childcare. I don't know how many people realize that there's no childcare. The YMCA, their childcare wait list is, you could call up today and it might take you 2 years to get childcare. So, some people have no choice but to stay home and take care of their children. It's not because they don't want to work. It's because they don't have anybody to watch their child to go to work. So, Karen Ann is starting to see this. It's a serious problem that we have. And, we've done so much with our community navigator program, but there's so much more to do. And you're absolutely right. Increase in fuel oil. And that's one of the things we're seeing too, is people depleted their savings or some of their savings to pay for their fuel oil. And now they're faced with what happens if it doesn't go down this year. And I think that's what you're going to see. And a lot of the resources for fuel oil don't become available until later. I don't even think you can sign up until August for fuel assistance. And we have to, think about, again, food insecurity, the housing issues that we have. So hopefully on Friday, it is Friday, it's at 9 o'clock, Abden, the Colonel, myself and Karen Ann, we're going to sit down with Marvin Nesbitt and have like a roundtable discussion about what resources are available, what can people do. I think if people were to donate to our Community Navigator Fund that we have, that gives us an ability, if somebody comes in and needs more than, it's a $50, we typically give out a $50 voucher from the Salvation Army for fuel oil. That's gonna get you very little fuel oil if it's, $5, $6 a gallon. So, we really have to have a plan, and we need to start talking about it now while it's roasting out, because it's going to be cold before you know it. And, that's one of the things that, we're going to talk about. And Karen Ann does have the resources. She's here 3 days a week now. We got to get that message out. And part of the problem is that how do you reach the unreachable? How do you reach the person who isn't on social media, who doesn't watch the town meetings? It's kind of like what Deidre was saying, in a way, it should have been brought to the voters. We voted on that very thing, the election, when she was speaking at the last meeting. There is some, how do you reach people? How do you get them to engage? How do you get them to be aware of this? So not only about her concerns, but how do we reach people who need help and sometimes are simply too proud to ask for it? I mean, we have people who work their whole lives that live on Social Security that are just too proud to ask and say, I'm really struggling with this. So we've got to find a better way to communicate, and I just don't know what that is. I mean, I know we're planning on putting out something in the bills that go out for our tax bills, like a 2-page newsletter or something to try to get people aware of things that are going on. But this is a serious issue, and it's not just a Waldeboro issue, it's all over. But I think we've been the leader when it comes to saying, hey, there's poverty issues, we have all of these issues. And I say this a lot, and I don't mean this lightly, but this board supported the Community Navigator position. We were at the forefront of that. We've been ringing the bell for years. I think we've got to start ringing the bell and saying, as generous as people were when COVID first happened with our food initiative, they need to be engaged of what's happening. And I do think there is some misinformation. Like I said, some people think, well, they just don't want to work. Well, if you have 2 children at home and there's no daycare, you can't work. You have to stay home and take care of your child. If you're on a fixed income, you're experiencing the same thing. So I'll get off my soapbox now. But so we're going to be on LCTV, and maybe we figured that might be another good way to get out to maybe reach some of the older people in our community that might need that little bit of help. And it's important.
So how are you going to advertise the program? It's pre-recorded, right?
Right, we'll put it on Facebook. But again, it's,
The people who need
if
to watch
somebody
it don't
had an
have
idea
Facebook.
of how to get people engaged, if you could take, so I wish people 5 days before the election were as engaged as they were 5 days before the election all year round. I put out something that said, come volunteer. Come volunteer. We have plenty of seats open. Where is everybody? It's much easier to sit on a social platform and complain, but we need people to do something. I'll give you a prime example. Our cemetery committees need volunteers. They are in desperate need of volunteers for the simple fact that somebody needs to call and get the grass mowed. Instead, we get all these angry people coming in here, and I say, you have relatives that are buried there and you're upset the grass isn't mowed? Could you please volunteer for one of these committees? Here's the phone number. Here is the phone number. You should call and become a member of that board. Well, I don't have time for that. So it's very frustrating when you have all these needs and there's people that have a lot of great ideas. And I forget which one of you said it last meeting. It was you, I think. We need doers.
Yeah.
We need doers. We need people who are going to do the work. And like I said, I mean, that's just an aside, but tackling poverty is a really big job. And we need to do it. You missed my best part of my speech. You're gonna have to play it back and listen.
Robert,
One way we sort of made a foray into this is to use the Philbrook Fund, not only as a source, but as a lever for getting the people who have the issues to come in here and talk to us or talk to our community navigator to find out what resources are available to them. A lot of these issues,
They're not just one issue.
it's not necessarily poverty. It's a situation they found themselves in that we can suggest solutions to. And yes,
Some of
it
it is
poverty.
Some of it is, and it's not, to be honest with you, and Karen Ann, if she were here, she would say it, and she'd say it so much more eloquently than I would. But if she sees somebody who's coming in because they need help fixing something in their home, and they've been, say, referred from CHIP, we want to see that person, because
Yeah.
if they can't afford to do those repairs, we need to know. And what is it that we can help, what resources does she have that she can then, and I'm not talking about handing out money, I'm talking about handing out resources or directing her to existing programs that can say, okay, so do you know about our food pantry? Okay, you need help finding a job. What other areas do you have? Because you don't typically just have one need. It's typically
Right.
many needs. And if you can wrap that person around with resources and get them to some place where they can help themselves. And we've had people who Karen Ann has done that to. She's wrapped them in a resource. They've managed to get out of where they were. And then they decide to turn around and help somebody else. So the good help breeds the good help. And it just, it's exciting and good.
I just want to make sure I have this right. It's Friday.
We're taping on Friday. I don't know when it
Okay,
will be on.
oh, but it's not live on Friday.
No, it's not
Okay,
live.
so we
It's-
don't know
we'll
when
be
we can
taping.
see it.
Yeah, we'll be
Okay.
taping.
All right, great.
And we'll put it on our Facebook page, and it should be Marva's always great to see, and and I think it was important to invite members of the select board committee, because I think it needs to not just be Julie's out there ringing the bell and Karen Ann. And everybody knows we talk about this a lot, but I think it's great to have select board support of it so that people understand it's the town. It's not just, the town manager and the community navigator saying, hey, this is an issue, and here's how we're going to address it. Because it's tough out there.
okay, is there a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Second, is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? On, go ahead. What
Do we
discussion?
have items for our next meeting?
We have
Oh,
the
that's right,
public,
skip that.
we have the public hearing on the warrant, special town warrant.
Okay.
Anything else?
Okay, next one for in late July.
Whatever you want to do.
Late July, I think this warrant one might take up a bit.
No, I think, let's do it let's do it this one. The public hearing should be quick.
What is it, Max?
CDBG public hearing for housing systems.
What time is the special town?
It's going to be at 6 o'clock right here.
So from my understanding, you already have 150,000 in the capital reserve.
We
account.
already have 150,000 in the capital reserve.
So this will allow you to raise an additional 150 or take out 150,000.
Correct. So my fear is this, is that we can order it now and we don't have to put any money down. And it's not supposedly going to come between 18 and 24 months. But what if it comes in 6 months or 12 months? We need to have the funding in place to be able to do it.
And then related to the gentleman's concern on the town ordinance, is there a appeal process that they can take to like Board of Appeals or anything related to?
So it's not a property maintenance ordinance.
Okay.
And I have to be honest with you, I haven't read that since right before the election.
Okay.
But I will reread it and I will let you know. And again, it wasn't designed, and I don't want anybody to get the impression, and I meant to correct this. The police chief did not write this ordinance. You know, we took it from a different town.
Okay.
He did not write it to make himself the be all end all of that. That is not, that's so far from
Well, in the definition, there says any police officer that he says.
who,
But
but-
from my understanding of the ordinance, there wasn't the sole arbiter of the decision-making and the finding coach of the police department. There is no, at least in that ordinance, so I'm just trying to understand,
right,
does it fall under like a separate purview just by the way that your town charter is set? Is there any appeal process naturally in the town when an ordinance like this is passed?
so my understanding would be if it doesn't go, at least my understanding, and I would really like to read it before, let me read it before,
Okay,
because
for
I
sure.
don't want to say something and
Can
then
you
have
call
it
me,
be.
like, at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning?
I can call you or text you at 8 o'clock.
Sure. Okay.
But again, it was never the intent to create like a police
Sure.
estate. We really were reacting, I think the select board was reacting to legitimate concerns from residents.
And you would mention these have been violent incidences in some cases?
So in some cases, there's been violent
And what was
instances.
the timeframe that these incidents were coming in the last 2 years?
Last
Oh, yeah.
3, 4, honestly, it started since 2017.
2017. is
But
when it
we had
started.
residents here at the meeting. They went to a planning board meeting and voiced concerns. They were at our meeting and voiced concerns. We get,
I still get the complaints.
Max,
If you can send me some of those, that'd be amazing.
Well, verbally, I think.
Oh, verbally. Oh,
but I mean, we have, I mean, in our meetings and in our minutes, we have where people came and actually spoke about issues.
Sure, okay.
And so, I mean, we haven't really had, and I think people also have the issue that, well, if somebody breaks the law, they should be arrested. And what they don't understand is, so on a Friday night, there's an incident. Somebody is potentially taken away, but then they're back hours later and the same incident happens. They are, it's a difficult process, and we don't have anything to say to the landlord, you know, you bear some responsibility in this. You bear some responsibility in who you rent to and what's happening to the neighbors who are trying, you know, who have children there who shouldn't be exposed to X, Y, and Z. And if Stan was here too, he could also speak to some of the issues that we have with the condition of the housing too. So, you know, it's not about, a lot of the comments on Facebook were about, oh, well, my neighbor doesn't like me and I have a party. It's definitely not about that.
Yeah, a lot of it was the conduct on the property.
It was the-
loud noise, the-
Right, and even the loud noise, we have a noise ordinance. It's not about so much that as it is about even our resources. So, you know, I'll give you a prime example. And you should call John Lash tomorrow if you get a chance.
John Lash.
Our chief of police, and he can better give you specific instances from, you know, his view of what needs to happen. Again, we're trying to protect, you know, the public and the people who have come. And these are residents that have come to us that are a resident in specific of one of our most utilized areas where we see the most activity. If they're residents of the park itself and they're the neighbors of the park. I think that,
What is this, a trailer park?
yes.
Okay. What's the address on it? Is there only one trailer park?
No, it's East Ridge Mobile Home Park is where a majority of the complaints have come from.
And did any of the town lawyers consult you guys when you guys wrote this ordinance?
We actually consulted with MMA,
Okay.
and they gave us, they pointed us in the direction of several towns that had these ordinances. And I can, by tomorrow, hopefully I can find because we went through it several times to see it.
Okay.
And I don't think anybody is I mean, from my standpoint, if somebody's saying, hey, this is an issue and it's an actual issue, I don't think anybody here is married to not revisiting the ordinance.
And if they want to rewrite it, they can put a petition out, and get people behind the idea of redoing it.
But I don't think that
There's a way to-
anybody here,
No.
sitting here is saying they wouldn't reconsider doing something.
Yeah.
I think we're trying to actually, we want people to be happy.
I just wanted the voters to vote on it. That's the only reason I voted in favor of it, give it out there. And if they wanted it, they
No,
wanted,
I
if they
just
didn't, they
couldn't
didn't.
Make it sure, she said you guys are all going to reconsider it, so.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
well, because
Yep.
sometimes they don't, when I'm going on, they don't.
Yeah, that's all right. So, thank you. Appreciate your time.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for adjournment. Is there any other discussion? If not, all in favor of adjourning, raise your hand. All opposed, same sign.